Hey, welcome to the podcast, Jordan.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
It's very nice to meet you for the first time. But
Hmm.
one question I always like to ask every guest is, who do you say you are?
Who do I say I am?
Mhm.
That's tough. I mean, I say my name a lot on the show. People complain about it. In fact, they say I say it too much, but it is called the Jordan Harbinger show, so I guess I can't really avoid it. You know, it's an open-ended question, right? Because it creates an open sort of platform for the answer. I used to get really annoyed when I'd see someone's bio and it's like, dad, podcaster. I'm like, no one cares if you're a dad. But then I realize now that I have my own kids, I'm like, well, that's how they see themselves first. So now I look at that. I still refuse to put that in my bio because it's cringe, because nobody care. Again, nobody cares about you being a dad most of the time. But I do look at myself now primarily as my kid's dad, and then also this podcaster with the show. And it's a weird change because I really didn't expect that. I thought people that originally put things like that, like father, husband, I was like, get something that you care about in your life, man. You're the same thing as everyone else. Why are you listing that? It's like saying American. It's like, dude, we get it. Put something in there that people give a crap about. But now I realize, oh, this is like the most important thing in your life.
Right.
Duh.
And that's a good point. I always like um how you share your perspective on things because it's on the one hand it can seem shallow depending on
Mhm.
how people present themselves, but on the other hand, it's like when you have an experience, it can always shift how you view things. And that's one of the things I appreciate about you and my friend Theo, because every now and then we've got chances to have these conversations and really work on growth, personal development, and things of that sort. And of course, the episode that I remember from you was on that personal development, or I guess in a sense, if you'd say almost this hustle culture or hustle
Mm.
porn. So it's like it's weird where you can toe that line, and then you kind of wonder like, okay, where am I doing what it is that I really want to do, and that's beneficial, meaningful, versus where am I just kind of going with the flow and like, okay, like just lost in the sauce.
Yeah, it's funny you should bring that up because right now somebody was like, why don't you do TikTok? You can promote your show there. Why don't you do social media ads? Oh, in order to do ads and have them perform well, you need to do these selfie videos, and then those get repurposed and they put on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. And I'm like, for something that was supposed to be, hey, you can just run these ads here and it probably just costs some money, it sure sounds like I'm going to be doing a lot of work. Oh, you just had to do some videos, but you got to change them up. But then you got to do a bunch of versions to test which ones do the best. And I was just like, if I get this 100% right, I get to do kind of the same thing I'm doing now, only I have less time to do the thing I like doing. And I have to do this other thing instead that sort of benefits what I'm doing now, but is sort of tangential to what I'm doing. So I'm like, I'm not sold on any of this. Not to mention, to get certain things like that correct, you're fighting against these platforms' algorithms that want to just kind of give you the bare minimum and squeeze money out of you. And I'm like, I don't really know how. I don't really know how important that is. Like, another example is somebody will say you should do live events, or you should sell a product, or you should do a coaching thing. And it's like, well, okay, so now I'm dedicating 10, 20, 30% of my time to doing something I kind of don't want to do to add this chunk of money to my income. But what am I going to do with that money? Use it to make more money by doing other things that I don't really like. So it kind of didn't make any sense to optimize for income, because you use it to like what, get more famous? Who cares? And you realize that when you have kids too. Like before I had kids, I was like, yeah, you got to do this and this and this and hustle and this and income that. And now that I have kids, I'm like, nope, I'm going to optimize for time, because I want to be done at 5:30 and play with my kids until they go to bed. I don't want to be like, oh, now I can't see my kids much today because I've got to record selfie videos for TikTok, and then I got a meeting with our marketing team to discuss our Pinterest strategy. It's like, no, I like reading books and talking to smart people on my podcast, on the Jordan Harbinger show. If I'm not doing that, maybe I'll be marketing in some other way that I like. I buy ads on other people's podcasts. If you maybe heard other shows that mention me, you know, I'll pay for that stuff because I'm supporting podcast creators, but I don't want to be making stuff that gets people to go from Instagram to my like, no, thank you. Just no, no, no. And that was a lesson that was sort of hard won because you do get FOMO in life by looking at what other people are doing and seeing their success, which of course a lot of that is BS too, right? Like, look how much money I'm making. Well, why are you selling a course on how to do TikTok ads instead of doing TikTok ads for yourself? Why are you selling a course on this? If I figure something out, I'm not going to sell a course on it. I'm going to use it to grow my business. The last thing I'm going to do is teach 1,000 people how to do the same thing. That's makes no sense to me at all. You know, that's what trade secret is. So I'm just always so suspect at this and suspicious of this. And now that I'm 42 and I've been in the game for like 15 plus years online, I'm like, a lot of this is smoke and mirrors. And I'm glad I didn't trade any time with my kids to figure that out.
So does that mean, like, in a sense of when you're in the moment, you don't see it until you pass the moment, and then you're finally able to reflect back and say, okay, well, that was dumb. Like,
yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Like, I look back now and I go, okay, let me find an example. I'll be like, why did I want to create, like an online course back in the day? Or why did I continue trying to do this business that I didn't like? Why did I work with people that I didn't like? And usually it's because you feel like, well, it's a couple things, like sunk cost fallacy. I've been doing it for 10 years. I should keep doing it because, you know, I'll never get those 10 years back. Or the sort of like I don't know what bias this is, but like we're right around the corner sort of thing. Like, oh, what if I give up now? This is probably still sunk cost, but like if we give up now, you know, all this other stuff has gone to waste and we could be right at the cusp of something else. And then you realize, you know, nah, not necessarily. I've been saying that for a long time. You know, you start to track like, how I've been saying that for a long time. Like, this is going to happen. This is going to pop off. And then you start to see patterns in the way that the people you operate with are working. Like in my case, I would see we'd be getting close to something. My business partner would sabotage it. And then I'd be like, what the hell? And then I think, well, that was a weird accident. He's just, you know, or like he's uneasy about this. But after like years of that, I realized, oh, this is a person who is subconsciously going to self-sabotage. But the problem is I work with him. So this self-sabotage is you're actually just sabotaging me now. And and before I realized that, I was like, why does this person keep sabotaging me? And then I realized, oh, he's sabotaging me and he's sabotaging himself. And then I started to realize, I don't even know if this person's thinking about me. They might literally only be thinking about sabotaging themselves. And then it was like, why am I trying to save this drowning person who keeps punching me in the face? You know, it's like at some point I'm just going to let you go. And so when I split off from my previous business partners, it was really scary. But now looking at my business, I'm like, why didn't I leave earlier? Holy smokes, I should have left 4 years earlier. Now, everything worked out great. And who's to say if I'd left 4 years earlier, maybe I wouldn't have been able to make it. Something, you know, could have been more stressful. Who knows? But yeah, usually you kind of pass that point. You miss the turn and then you go, oh, wait a minute, it's back there is when I should have left. Oh, well, and you turn around and go back. So yeah, you do spend a lot of time with wrong turns. Ideally, you minimize that by using experience to learn. Like a friend of mine the other day, I released an episode about why people can't pay attention, and with Johan Hari. And a friend of mine who's a big YouTuber, he texted me and he's like, this episode changed my life. And I'm like, really? That's funny because it's not like new stuff. It's like, yeah, your attention span sucks. Here's why. It's social media. Your phone's addictive, etc. Well, he's like, I am the guy that sits there with my kids and like is playing with my phone and then thinking I'm playing with my kids, but my kid's trying to show me something, but I'm holding my phone. And he's like, it made me want to cry hearing that. So he's, you know, he puts his phone down, he locks his phone in this like plastic container and that he bought online. And he's like, now I just play with my kids and I don't listen on my phone. And the key is to catch yourself before the kids are 12 and they're like, Dad just plays with his phone. I don't try to talk to him or engage with him. He just plays with his phone. You know, catch yourself when they're 2 or 1 and you're doing this. You know, you can't really beat yourself up about the past. It's not super healthy, but you can use it to learn. And so in these types of cases, whether it's you should have taken a different turn in your business or you should be building a habit or getting rid of a habit, it's helpful to pay closer attention. And you're right. Yeah, you do kind of overshoot things or get FOMO or whatever it is until you really sort of realize exactly what side street you should have gone down. so to
But
speak.
can you really have FOMO when you've had like amazing guests on your shows, like from Admiral McGraven to like the baddest dudes in the world, like they've all been on your show, right? And
Yeah.
you can look back and say, well, okay, well that turned out great. But I think I remember that transition that you were making, and I remember how it was like you retained a lot of your guests, and they came back and being so gracious and grateful to come back. And I'm like, wow, okay, they followed a person. It wasn't necessarily the brand, or it was more so the person they
Totally.
gravitated to. So I thought it was important as well, just to see that happen. Like,
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So before I left my old company, I was like, uh-oh, I'm going to lose my identity because I'm leaving my old business. And the business was so tied to my identity and brand. And the brand was tied to my brand or my personal identity, whatever you want to call it. And so then when I left, I thought about leaving. I was like, who will I actually be if I am no longer this person of this company? And then you think, oh, what if these relationships only cared about the show that they were on, what the show could do for their book sales, et cetera? And there were some people like that, but really they were the truth is, like you said, yeah, when I left, I didn't have any problem getting those same people back on my new show. I didn't have any problem retaining audience or converting the old audience to my current audience. I didn't have any problem getting advertisers to believe in my new venture. I didn't have any problem getting a network to sign me to a contract for my new venture. It was like almost overnight, and I did not see that coming. Now, and that was my nightmare, was like, if I have to start over, I have to start over with everything. I have to rebuild my brand, which means rebuilding my identity, which means rebuilding my show. Like, how am I going to do this? Not really. My relationships withstood all of that stuff. And what's funny is the previous company they didn't see that coming. They thought Jordan's screwed and we're going to take all those relationships because people are going to do what's best for them. And that didn't really work for them either. I really thought everyone's going to stay with them. No one's going to come with me because it's going to be, what have you done for me lately? And I have to start over. But it wasn't like that at all. It was, this guy did a show we love, we're going to follow him. This guy has a show we love to sponsor, we're going to follow him. This guy was a podcaster on our network that did good for us. We're going to start over with him and bet on him. And, if I'd known that was going to happen, I would have left a lot earlier. But you don't know that it's going to happen, and you're scared to do it. And so in a way, I look back now, and it's kind of funny because I didn't leave my old company that willingly. I wanted to split from them, and we had an amicable split, and then they didn't honor it. And then they tried to sue me for leaving, and then I countersued, and it was a whole big mess. And then in the end, they did not win. But, it wasn't something that I don't think I would have had the balls to leave on my own. I think I had to be pushed out of the airplane. And then when they pushed me out of the airplane, and I think they were like, now he's going to come crawling back. And I was like, I don't know if I can say this on your show, but as I was falling out of the airplane, I was like, fuck y'all, it's like, and then I started over, pulled the parachute, started over, and now they're on the plane and they're like, wait, this thing's out of fuel? And I'm like, oh, good thing I parachuted and landed safely, in this field. And I see that plane and I'm like, I'm so glad I'm not on that thing anymore. But at the time, it was really scary. You don't know, you almost don't know you have a parachute. And then it's like, you pull the chute, rebuild your business. Now we're back on top. We're one of the most popular Jordan Harbinger show. I just saw this ranking thing get released, and we're like the number 14 most downloaded show in the world or something like that right now. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool for like 4 years of work, right? I mean, I didn't expect that ever to happen. And here we are, and it's because of the relationships that I built over time. It's not like I'm so special and talented. It's like, wow, all of these people that believed in me back when I was with my old company, they didn't just suddenly change their mind, which sounds normal now. But in the moment, you're like, what if everybody just leaves me because I can't help them anymore, or I can't do anything for them anymore? But it was like one person did that. One person said that to me, and so some influencer guy that's like not a real friend. But everybody else was like, I had people who had multi-million-dollar businesses be like, you lost your business and you're starting a new show? I'm going to send this to my entire email list tomorrow and promote it. I'm like, that's pretty damn cool, man, because that would probably have cost me like $25,000 or more to mail out to your list. I don't have that kind of money. At that time, I was like, my income just got chopped to zero. So I was like, what am I going to do? And people really had my back. And that was like a lesson that I kind of had to learn by going through the fire.
Wow, it's like that whole dig, what like that saying that they said, dig the well before you get thirsty type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Exactly.
he
Yeah, exactly.
legitimately lives it, and I think that's what's so unique about just having a network of of people that you can always reach out to, is that they see your worth and they help you keep your worth along the way. And I think that's always incredible as well.
It's true. Yeah, dig the well before you're thirsty. The thing is, like, when I'm saying that at the time, I was like, well, I hope I'm never thirsty. But that's the thing. You think I hope I'm never thirsty, but then when you get thirsty, you're like, thank God I dug this well by making these relationships before I needed them. The problem is people usually go, I'm never going to be thirsty. This is rock solid. I'm doing great where I'm at. I don't really need anything. I don't need to do this. And so I get emails like every month that go, okay, I know you say dig the well before you get thirsty. What happened? What do you tell someone that didn't do that and is out now and is super thirsty? I just got laid off. And I'm like, ooh, you got to start at the beginning of the thing. And they're like, no, but like, I didn't do that earlier. What's the shortcut to the thing now? And I'm like, you go back and you start the process you should have started 3 years ago when you first found out about this. And then, yeah, you probably have a long recovery, man, because you didn't build the runway and you're trying to get the plane off again. Like, you got to build the airport now. That's going to take you a minute. And they're like, so what, but like, what do you do in an emergency? And I'm like, you start over. Like, that's what you do, and there's no shortcut. And it's kind of a depressing email to send because it's like, there's no joy in me being like, I told you so, but because that person's in dire straits right then. But the truth is, if there was a freaking shortcut to dig the well before you get thirsty, that wouldn't be the slogan for the course that I give away, right? The slogan would be, don't bother digging the well before you get thirsty because I have a quick trick that makes it so you don't need to. And I'd come up with a clever way to say that. No, there's no shortcut to this. Like, it's like an insurance policy, but that you can't buy with money. You got to earn it by building and maintaining relationships over time and building a brand and maintaining it over time and being trustworthy and coming through for people. Like, there's no way to just supplant that with a magical saying or intense short-term effort. It's not how it works.
And hustle culture has literally ruined that to where it's like,
yeah,
hey, look at my Lamborghini I just borrowed.
Right.
And the guy is probably like not even anywhere close, and it's like, okay, let me just take a picture with this real quick. But
sure,
I think that truly has ruined the ability to think for yourself and the ability to really create bonds and create true relationships and create true partnerships. So yeah, it's like, I hate hustle culture so bad, but
yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, it's ruined a lot of young people, especially because they look at that stuff and young people are like, oh, what am I doing wrong with this 28-year-old guy has this thing that I don't think I could ever afford? And the truth is, it's just they're lying most of the time. There's some people that are scammers that make money short term. There's some people that I'm sure are doing well, but usually those are not. I've never met the guy in the Instagram ad who's actually doing well. The guy in the Instagram ad is a poser or a fraudster, or is short term doing something right, and then 2 years on, you never hear that person's name again. You never see them anywhere. They're gone. CoffeeZilla or somebody on YouTube makes a video about them and they evaporate instantly because their market is toast. And you just don't see that. When I meet successful people, they are pretty much never online bragging about how successful they are. That's not how they've made their money. It's not how they're going to continue to make their money, with very few exceptions. Very few. And people, after I say that when on a show, people always go, but what about this guy? And I'm like, no, that guy especially is full of crap. Like, well, how do you know? It's like, well, I've seen this guy's tax returns, or like, I've heard from this person's friends that this is all smoke and mirrors, or I know this person's former executive assistant and he's got, $2 million in IRS debt that he's getting sued for. Like, most of this stuff is not as it seems.
I hate that, man. It's like, I just find that funny.
Yeah.
No, you're good.
Yeah. It is funny, but it sucks because it makes people who are doing the right things and working hard feel like crap, like they are missing a piece. And I see that all the time, like 28-year-olds that have graduated from school and they're like, I got a great job, but I see people online that are like doing these vacations and they're doing this and they're doing that. And I'm like, that person is broke as shit. That guy has no money. This person is living off of their dad or their credit card or whatever, and they're someplace saying, I just travel around the world day trading, and look, I'm in Ibiza. It's like, no, you're not, dude. You're in Ibiza. You're not day trading. You don't have a software platform. This is bullshit. But their whole job is, and all their energy is directed towards making other people feel bad. And I hate it because I've seen it behind the scenes, and those guys are like, they're not relaxing all the time. They're hustling and lying and working on stupid stuff that just generates net negative stuff, like making people feel bad so they give them money. It's just like, I hate everything about it.
Yeah, it's pretty telling. I think a lot of what you talk about just brings me back to thinking on principles and things that are like staples that have stood the test of time, being like, okay, the character that you have, the relationships that you build, that's what builds your reputation. That's eventually what you leave behind. That's how people remember you. And it's like a lot of the quick short-term things that come with media, or just the thing that's like, this is getting your attention. A lot of those things are fleeting. And sometimes it takes someone like you, someone like a Jordan Peterson, like other people that are out there being like,
Other
hey,
Jordans.
yeah, other
Jordans
Jordans.
of all varieties.
Right,
Yes.
right. But it's like, I appreciate the messaging, because it's like, it's not about selling someone something, but it's like, hey, here are the experiences that I've had, or here's what I've learned. And hopefully it helps you. Like, take it and use it if you want, but you have to be willing to do the work. Like, if you're looking for a shortcut, if you're looking for a simple method, I don't have it for you. But it's like, just that, the honesty, the transparency behind that. I really appreciate that. And that's one of the main things I connected with. But not to keep you long. I was just going to ask you one last question, but if you
Sure.
have the time,
Yeah, man.
I'm more than willing to let you go, because I feel that people should follow your podcast, and follow, not just follow, but actually listen and apply what works for them, because it's understanding that life is very different for people, and just being able to appreciate what you have. Because to the point that you made about looking at other people and envying what somebody else has versus not recognizing what it is that you have, I felt that for a while. But then being where I'm at now, and working like a 40-hour week, and just being content with that, to be like, hey, I'm getting paid to literally play in the dirt at times. It's like, no, that's pretty fun, and I can actually think about building a family from this. And but I had to kind of go through the mess and be like, okay, I took a wrong turn. Like, I need to focus on myself, start a hobby, or start something that I can enjoy and interact with other people. So
I don't know what your story is, but if you play in the dirt, that's probably pretty good for you. But I like that you have this to balance it out, because maybe not everybody, maybe you get lonely in the dirt. I don't know.
Well, I guess
it does get pretty, it does get pretty lonely.
Gotcha. I was gonna say, I won't go long into it, but just to give you a short background, I graduated with in civil engineering, so it's like I spent a lot of time working with construction, and now doing geotech. Basically, soils. You go out there and you explore the soil, do a little bit of digging, and you classify to say, hey, this is what we've got. And part of the reason for starting this was the quality of people that I kept meeting doing like technical jobs, trades, farmers, and things like that. There are a lot of the people that make the world turn, and you wouldn't recognize that unless you took a minute to like acknowledge somebody. Like, of course, everybody's busy, and we go here, we go there. Like, we've got things to do. Like, everybody's kind of tunnel vision in their own thing. But like, when you learn to appreciate someone like a janitor, and you see that, oh, like, this person isn't just a janitor. This is a dad. This is someone that's raising their kids to go to like an Ivy League school. They're like, hey, I couldn't do it, but like, they brag on their kids, like, this kid's super smart. Like, you would never see them online or on social media or anything like that. Maybe you see them get cleaned up for like one family picture, but like, those guys seem to have the best kind of fun, where they're just out there. It's a hard job, it's messy, but they find the fun in it. Like they joke and you kind of get weeded out of it if you can't take the joke, if you think you're so smart and things like that. But that's mainly the background on me, just being able to kind of come through those ranks and going to school with other people that are how would you say, like the top of the class, they know everything, and then they're just like, oh, I was out here hanging out with the AC on, and I'm over here like, oh wow, you made 15 bucks or I'm making 10. And like you start doing that like comparison, fear of missing out.
Mm,
And it's like, am I stupid? Like, am I just not getting the A's like them? Like, am I not gonna make it? Like what is like everybody's like trying to stack up, like, oh, I've got to make it, I've got to get there wherever there is. But then
yeah.
coming out on the end of that and even seeing someone with your background being a lawyer and being like, hey, there's another way, like there's a shift you make, but it's like you shouldn't feel bad about the experiences you go through, even when you go through them. Of course, like you don't like pain isn't something everyone wants to run through, but like being able to come out of something, have a story that you can share with other people and also encourage and inspire them, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I was thinking about this today. I was like, I don't know if you guys do this. You think about something that happened 20 years ago and you're like, oh, why did I do that? Oh, so cringe, man. I hope nobody remembers that. But then I look back, and no, I still do that all the time. Don't get me wrong. But I still am, I'm like, if I didn't do that, if I wasn't this person back then, if I didn't embarrass myself that way or screw up this opportunity or whatever, I wouldn't be able to help people who are in that similar situation, which I never thought I would be doing. But since people write to me for our Feedback Friday episodes every Friday for asking for advice and things like that, I can identify with so many situations because I'm like, oh, I've done that. Oh, I've done that. Oh, I've done that. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't have a wide variety of good and bad experiences. So I really look at some of my bad experiences and I'm like, wow, this puts me in a very unique position to really identify with the person who's writing in and help this person. And so in a way, all of that like stupid shit I did as a kid kind of like makes me good at my job now, which is shocking and a real gift, because usually you look back at something you did and cringe and you go, there was no benefit to that. And I hope nobody remembers it. And I don't even want to remember it. And I'm like, oh yeah, remember what that time when I did that really horrible, stupid thing and everybody like hated me for a while and da-da-da. And I'm like, that applies directly to this person right now. And I'm going to tell 300, 400, whatever thousand people about it on my show and just not have any shame attached to it because I'm using it to help someone. And it's like, that's a pretty good gift. It's almost a way to look back at something and go, that was so dumb. And now I'm going to turn it into something that's really helpful for a lot of people. Normal. And most people don't get to do that. So I look at things like that and I look for opportunities like that in my life where I'm like, where's this thing that I messed up and how can I help other people avoid that? And if you, even if you just do it for your own kids, primo, right? Like the guy who, you mentioned the janitor. I admire people like that so much because they don't have glory coming to them on Instagram. They don't have validation coming to them on social media anywhere. They are doing something that they probably, if they didn't have any kids, for example, they could do it like 20 hours a week. They could do some part-time job. They could live a very similar lifestyle. No, they work 50, 60 hours a week. They take overtime where they can. They take summer jobs or whatever it is if they're, able to do that because they want to send their kids, and they're living for their kids to do better than them, which is really like, I don't do that really. I mean, I do that for my kids, but I know that they can, but I'm not doing something I don't necessarily like so that they can have a great life. I'm living a great life and I'm going to encourage them to do the same, but I'm not really sacrificing that much. Those people are sacrificing a lot to do that. In fact, when you're talking about immigrants and stuff, they could have just not had kids. They could have stayed where they were, maybe gotten a different job, chilled out, had worked 4 days a week, not worked at all. What do I know? But instead, they come to the States, they work as a janitor in an elementary school. People treat them like crap, and they're like, whatever, my kid's going to go to Michigan, so it's worth it. My kids are going to grow up and go to school. They're American citizens. This was all worth it. And that, to me, is like, I really have to give props to people like that because that just makes my life look so easy and feel so easy. I don't have financial stress, or anything.
I
Yeah.
love that because you just literally spoke to both of our lives. But anyway, that's more here or there, because that's literally like both immigrants, and so like just like being able to hear that, like, okay, I guess our parents weren't so bad.
No, yeah, I look at immigrant parents and I'm like, dang, y'all are people. When I see immigrants who came to the United States and made it to like middle class, I'm like, that shit must have been so hard to do, so hard to do. Leaving like my wife's parents, leaving Taiwan, you don't really speak English, come to the United States, work for some company, start a business, whatever it is, open up a restaurant. That is hard. The easiest thing to do would have been like, I'm just going to stay here, whatever. Be a teacher at an elementary school in Taiwan, no big deal. You know, and my wife says this all the time. She's like, I look now at my parents, now that we have kids, and she looks back and she's like, man, my life would have been different. Because there's people her age that stayed in Taiwan, like her cousins and stuff, and it's just like, it's a different existence, to say the least. And I don't know where your parents immigrated from, but I'm guessing somewhere that was also not the same socioeconomic standards as the United States.
Yeah,
And if you'd stayed there,
completely different. And it's
yeah.
funny because I was talking to my mom the other day, and she reminded me that when we came to the States, I was 8 and she was 35. I just turned 37 today, and I'm looking at it, I was like, there's no way with 3 kids I would have been able to do that with not knowing English whatsoever. Would I have survived the same way? And I'm like,
Mm-mm.
no. And so I'm like, wow, yeah, kudos to my parents
Yeah.
for
Did you tell them that?
yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did tell my mom that, and I said, Mom, like, thank you. Like, I legitimately say thank you so much for sticking it out, for going back to school, for relearning and unlearning and just taking care of all of us, because she was a breadwinner for a long time because she went back to school to be a nurse, and she didn't know any English whatsoever, and she's a nurse now, and I'm like, wow, yeah, Mom, thank you. So yeah, I completely understand.
Did she cry? Because I'm about to cry on your show. That's so sweet.
She did not. She did not. She just made more fun of me.
She's a tough
yeah,
lady. Yeah, I mean, it's
yeah.
you think about that. That is such a hard thing to do. It's such a hard thing to do. Yeah, I think about right now. I love international travel. Would I move to? I'm trying to think of a change. Like, would I move to Sierra Leone for a better standard of living if that was what was over there for me? Bringing my kids there and being like, well, I don't really speak the language. I mean, I guess I do, but like, what if I didn't?
Yeah.
And then I got to learn it. No, I can do that. Oh, you're gonna stick out because you're a different color. It's fine. I'll figure it out. Well, you don't have any, the same kind of skills they need over there. That's fine. I'm gonna figure it out. Well, you have 3 kids, two kids. How are you gonna do that? I don't know, but living here is bad, so I got to move. Like that's gutsy. You're stepping straight into the unknown with babies.
Oh my God,
Crazy.
big time. And we're like we're from Rwanda, Africa, and so like we came to the war, because of the whole genocide thing. And so she brought 3 kids to America because my dad was still here, and we're all like, okay, this is all new. And she's dealing with her own stuff, with her own PTSD. She's dealing with 3 kids who are traumatized, and she still makes it work. She still made it work. And I'm like, there is no way, absolutely no way at 35 for me, I would have been able to do that and still be sane.
No.
And still love people and still take care of people and still laugh. Like there's no.
Is the current president of Rwanda, that's Paul Kagame, right?
Correct.
Or was that how you pronounce it? Yeah.
Mhm.
Is he like that guy was supposed to come on my show, but I'm like, is he a bad dude or a good dude? I don't even know. I have to do my prep, but I'm like, that's a controversial.
What side of the fence you're on?
That's what I think. I'm like, this could be more controversial than I thought. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's kind of like having
here.
putting on your show a little bit. It's kind of like having Vladimir putting on your show. There will be a lot of people who are like, because of the atrocities that has been committed.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. It's kind of like,
I might have to email you and get a little background before I go do this, because I was actually going to do it in Rwanda. I was just going to go there.
Wow.
But I'm like, I got to do some research and see if it's safe for dudes like me.
Well, for you, it would be safe. For me, not so much. But
interesting.
It's definitely it's if a dictator knew how to speak English and knew how to get around like the American system, and was able to also get the government on their side so that they look blameless. that's who he is, and so he's definitely he's a terrible dude. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was. That's the real answer, because I was like, this guy is got to be polarizing, and no matter what side you're on, the other side killed a bunch of people that you know and love. I mean, that's why your mom left, right?
Right.
So that's interesting. I might have to email you and get some actual like firsthand background. Maybe I'll talk to your mom or something before I go do this interview.
Yeah.
Seriously, you know, like, hey, I spoke to this woman.
Yeah.
She escaped from Rwanda. Like, what do you think when people had to escape their country? What do you think about that? You know, she just was a woman who was a nurse that had kids. You know, she didn't do anything. I wonder how he would answer that. Especially if I'm sitting right in front of him.
A generic answer, like a well manicured generic answer.
You know what though? People see through that shit, especially in a podcast.
Yeah.
They'll see through it, and that's why those answers don't work when I mean, it's just they don't work. Like they only work if you're giving a speech. They don't work when you're talking with somebody who is like. When people listen, they go, "That's bullshit."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's the funny thing about your podcast, because the way that you ask questions, it does force you guests to think, but in a way that gives you the real answer without like all the fluff. Like I remember like all the mobsters that you've had on your show, like they give you the real answer of what their lives was like, and it's not like glorified, Godfather, thing, but it's like the real answers, and it's like, I would have never thought about that. So
yeah. I have to go in a minute, but I will say to your point, Sammy the Bull, like I said, what would you say if your son wanted to join the mob? Which I thought was an obvious question that none of these other mafia interviewer guys have ever asked him. They're all like, "Oh, you killed 19 people. Oh, it's so amazing." I'm like, "What would you say?" And he said, "Don't go ahead and join and screw up your whole life. You're going to kill everyone you love. You're going to kill your best friends. You're going to kill people you think are your family. You're going to kill everything. You're going to ruin your whole life. But go ahead and join, you dumbass," or something like that. That was his answer to that. And I was like, he's talking to himself at age 18. That's what he's doing right now. And I'm just like, people like, "Oh man, you were in the mob in the 80s and the 70s. That's cool, bro." Meanwhile, this guy spent 30 years of his life in a Supermax. He doesn't think that's cool. Yeah. So, guys, it's been a pleasure talking with you. This is a fun one. And, I'll have to get some background on the Rwanda situation if I'm going to go there, maybe next year. But thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast. I appreciate it, guys.
Appreciate having you, Jordan.
See ya.